Today, we bring you a special news report, not about an event that was predicted, but about a natural disaster sweeping through the city of Manoa, Hawaii, a devastating flood of such intensity that few could have imagined. On the evening of March 22nd, heavy rainfall relentlessly poured down on the Manoa area, causing the small valley stream to exceed safe levels, quickly transforming once peaceful streets into raging rivers. In just a few hours, what seemed like an ordinary day turned into a deadly scene as the floodwaters rose suddenly, forcefully, and uncontrollably. Homes, roads, cars, everything was swept away by the rapidly moving waters. In those first hours, the residents of Manoa were caught off guard. Peaceful neighborhoods were turned into powerful streams, invading every corner. The sight of cars submerged under vast waters, roads torn apart, and the complete disappearance of everyday life left a chilling impression. But this was just the beginning of an even more serious disaster. The water levels continued to rise, and we were soon faced with another terrifying issue. The threat from a nearby hydroelectric dam began to emerge as the biggest concern. As the floodwaters continued to wreak havoc, another issue began to escalate more than ever before. The nearby hydroelectric dam, which had shown signs of weakening beforehand, now faced the risk of breaking. If this were to happen, the damage would be unimaginable. The entire area would be submerged in a sea of water, with devastation not only in terms of property, but also the loss of thousands of lives. The concern intensified as emergency alerts were issued, urging all residents to be prepared for evacuation under incredibly tense conditions. Those families who remained now had to face a choice: abandon their belongings and homes, or accept the greatest risk they could possibly face, a life swept away in the ferocious floodwaters. In the midst of this chaos, local authorities couldn't stop warning. Rescue teams were urgently deployed. But would they make it in time when everything seemed to be spiraling out of control? The tension reached its peak as the water level not only continued to rise, but also became unpredictable. The residential areas were isolated, unable to evacuate safely, leaving everyone to pray for a miracle. But would that miracle arrive in time as the disaster unfolded right before their eyes?
Water that came inside the laundry room. A bunch of really big trees snapped in half, and my experience with Hurricane Ian.
As the water levels continued to rise, there was no choice but to evacuate the thousands of people directly threatened by the flood. More than 5,500 people were forced to leave their homes under extremely difficult conditions. The only escape routes had now been completely submerged. Meanwhile, rescue teams were unable to reach the isolated areas, as the roads had been entirely paralyzed by the floodwaters. The rescue teams worked tirelessly to rescue those trapped in extremely dangerous situations. Ambulances and fire trucks could no longer pass through roads that had turned into rivers. The rescue teams had to use boats and special equipment to get people out of the deeply flooded areas. Along with this, the homes that had been submerged in water caused a series of severe incidents. Critical infrastructure, such as hospitals, schools, and houses, were heavily affected. In fact, some buildings had completely collapsed due to the changing landscape and the sudden force of the water. These hours, which seemed endless, saw the entire community of Manoa racing against time, waiting for rescue, only to realize that their lives and property were becoming more and more fragile by the minute. With the floodwaters not only sweeping away homes, but also causing severe damage to infrastructure, the Manoa community now faces a challenging future. Roads, bridges, power, and water systems have been critically damaged, making recovery incredibly difficult and costly. Shops, businesses, and farms have also suffered significant losses. The continuous heavy rainfall not only caused flooding, but also impacted crops, reducing productivity and directly affecting the livelihoods of local people. Many families have lost not only their homes, but also their jobs, their only source of income. Although the waters have receded somewhat, what remains after this disaster is a scene of devastation, not only in terms of material loss, but also the spirit of the people of Manoa. They will need a long time to rebuild what has been lost. However, this is no easy task, as the cost of recovery will require millions of dollars and an enormous workforce.
Whoa.
Finally, after hours of intense moments, the disaster has temporarily subsided. But the biggest question remains: can Monoa recover from such a devastating disaster? The community is facing enormous challenges, not only financially, but also mentally and in terms of infrastructure. However, that is not the only issue. The greatest lesson that this disaster brings is a stark reminder of the need to improve flood management systems, enhance emergency preparedness, and strengthen infrastructure to combat natural disasters. When faced with the threat of unpredictable calamities, one thing is certain: the Monoa community cannot allow these mistakes to repeat. Preventative measures must be implemented immediately. The big question remains: do we have enough preparation to deal with floods like this in the future? And does the community have enough strength to rise up and rebuild what has been lost? Ultimately, it is during these dark moments that we find the drive to implement powerful changes in protecting communities from the increasing frequency of natural disasters. We can only hope that recovery will not only be about rebuilding physically, but also about the revival of the spirit, hope, and resilience of the people of Monoa. If you live in Monoa, Hawaii, share with us your experiences during the recent flood. Your story can help many others understand the disaster and how the community is recovering. If you found this information helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on the latest updates. Share your thoughts in the comments below and help us spread the message.